Okay, let's try a little thought experiment. What happens if you just take one single random day, say Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, and you just try to make sense of all the news? You've got this whirlwind of headlines, right? Insane tech breakthroughs, huge corporate shakeups, and global standoffs. It all feels so chaotic. But there's actually a pattern here. And by breaking down just this one day, we can start to get a handle on the wild era we're all living in.
And man, we start with a bang. On this day, Apple announces it's jumping headfirst into one of the hottest trends in Silicon Valley. They're building agentic coding right into Xcode, their main tool for developers.
At the exact same time, one of the most famous companies in America makes a massive move. Disney finally names a successor to CEO Bob Iger. They're tapping the head of their parks division, Josh D'Amaro, to try and steer the ship through some pretty choppy waters.
And while all that's going on in the tech and business worlds, things are heating up globally. The U.S. military confirms it shot down an Iranian drone that was, in their words, aggressively approaching an American aircraft carrier. Yeah, the stakes here are unbelievably high.
It's a lot to take in, right? You've got AI writing its own code, a corporate giant trying to find its way, and a military near miss in the Arabian Sea. It all feels so random, but I promise you, these stories are connected. They tell a much bigger story about two powerful forces that are shaping everything right now: incredible acceleration and a whole lot of anxiety.
So, let's start with that acceleration. The first big theme of the day is this AI arms race, and it's moving at a speed that is, well, both totally thrilling and, for a lot of people, deeply concerning.
So that technology at the heart of the Apple story, it's called agentic coding. And this is a huge leap forward. Seriously. We're not talking about some AI suggesting a line of code here and there. No. We're talking about AI software agents that can handle complex, multi-step tasks like building and testing an entire feature for an app, all by themselves. An Apple representative basically said it just changes everything about how software gets made. Instead of a programmer writing every single line of code, they can now just describe the goal or even just the feeling they want to create. Some people are calling it vibe coding. Then the AI agents do all the heavy lifting of writing, testing, and even fixing the project. Wild.
Of course, this AI revolution doesn't just happen out of thin air. It runs on these incredibly powerful chips called GPUs. And that market, as you can see here, is just overwhelmingly dominated by NVIDIA. But the AI arms race is also a hardware race. And on this very same day, we see Intel making a really serious move to try and challenge that dominance by hiring a new chief architect for their own GPU division.
But with all that incredible speed comes the anxiety. On the very same day Apple is celebrating its big AI leap, French police are raiding the Paris offices of X, Elon Musk's social media network. And the investigation is focused squarely on its AI, Grok, with some really serious allegations. Everything from data extraction to spreading harmful deepfakes. Now, this tension between moving fast and facing the consequences is not just happening in the tech world. This new reality of rapid change and economic stress is putting these huge legacy companies in a really tough spot. So how are they dealing with it?
Well, just look at Disney. The company spent years in this state of leadership drama. After Bob Iger's first replacement, Bob Chapek, was pushed out, Iger had to come back to steady the ship. His choice of Josh D'Amaro, a guy who successfully grew the parks, it really signals they're looking for stable, proven leadership in what feels like a really unstable time.
And that pressure, it isn't just in the boardroom, it's hitting all of us. On this one Tuesday, you see two major brands wrestling with economic anxiety. PepsiCo announces it's cutting prices on snacks like Doritos because, shoppers are just not paying those high prices anymore. And Chipotle is getting ready for its earnings report after 3 straight quarters of fewer people coming in, citing those macroeconomic pressures that we're all feeling in our wallets.
This whole feeling of anxiety and acceleration, it isn't just happening at home. It's playing out on the global stage, creating this landscape of rising tensions everywhere, from financial markets all the way to active conflict zones.
And on this very same day, the legendary investor Ray Dalio gives this absolutely chilling warning. He says the world is, quote, on the brink of a capital war, a conflict where money itself is used as a weapon through sanctions and controls. It's a pretty stark reminder of just how fragile the whole global system has become.
And we see a real-world example of that exact tension with the drone incident. So let's break it down. First, an Iranian drone flies way too close to a U.S. aircraft carrier. In response, a U.S. jet shoots it down in self-defense. But it doesn't end there. Just a few hours later, Iranian forces start harassing a U.S. merchant ship nearby. You can see how quickly things can escalate in these critical parts of the world.
And this friction, it's not just between nations. It's happening right here at home, too. On this same day, the news is just filled with stories of deep political division. On one side, you have calls to basically centralize control over the entire election process, while on the other, you have demands for investigations into whether law enforcement is being politicized. It's just a snapshot of a system under enormous internal strain.
So, okay, we've seen these threads of technological acceleration, corporate anxiety, and global tension, all woven through the news of a single day. So how do people actually navigate this new reality? How do we respond on a human scale?
Well, a story that was also published on this day kind of brings it all home. Faced with worries about an aging parent's health and living situation, one Texas family just decided to take matters into their own hands. They built a 400-square-foot tiny home in their backyard for just over $31,000, a direct, personal solution to their own anxieties.
Now, let's put that personal solution into perspective for a second. That family's entire home cost a tiny, tiny fraction. We're talking less than 1/100,000% of the potential $100 billion that NVIDIA is reportedly thinking about investing in OpenAI. This is the scale of the world we live in. Intensely personal solutions happening in the shadow of these unimaginably huge technological and financial forces.
And that really brings us to the final question from our single day of news. When the world is accelerating this fast, when AI can act on its own, and when global systems feel so fragile, where do we as individuals, as companies, as a society, where do we find our footing? What's the right move? That's really the challenge of our age, isn't it?